Hello, and welcome back to more Films Under Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host Maverick, Dren, Zaria. This week we are taking a look at the 1991 film, The Rocketeer.
Or we could do Craven the Hunter.
Please, no.
I don't know if you've seen the reviews for it.
It's scored lower than Madam Web.
It's it's at 16% now, so...
Oh, okay, it's going up.
Was Madam Web's at 11. So...
Because when I heard the score, it was at 9.
Oh, boy.
Sony only makes good movies.
Yeah, I mean, they made Morbius, the greatest movie of all time, so of course they did.
When reviews for Craven first started coming out, if you took Craven's score and Madam Web's score and added them together, it was less than Morbius's score.
Wow. Okay, so The Rocketeer was released on June 21st, 1991. And you know what that means? We have finally done a movie for every year of the 90s.
That took us a while.
Hey, we could have done Highlander 2. That would have completed 1991 as well. It was released by Disney. Surprisingly, this wasn't a Touchstone movie. It was a Disney. Disney just went, we're putting our name on it. We're not sweeping it under the rug. It cost about $38 million. And it only made $46.7 million in the United States.
Ooh.
Which is why this never got a sequel. It didn't have a toy line. Or, well, maybe it did. Well, it never got a sequel. It might have had a toy line, but, yeah. Disney did, however, make a TV show years later.
I saw that when I was looking this movie up. That there's I guess a kid's, isn't it like a 3D cartoon?
Yeah, and I think Billy Campbell came back, in a guest role, but anyway. There is also a Tiger electronic game of this movie floating around, apparently.
Well, of course. There's a Tiger electronic for everything out there.
So this was based on a comic book character. And even though I'd seen this movie a few times, I'd never actually read the comics. So I decided, since we're doing the podcast on it, I'll read some of it. The movie was not an exact adaptation, but it has, the basic feel of it. It has the basic elements. They just made their own story out of it, essentially.
Okay.
Pilot in the 30s with a rocket pack fights bad guys,
Yeah.
The Bulldog Cafe is in it. The characters talk like they're in a 30s movie because, of course, And some of the characters from the comic did make it into the movie. Cliff, Peavy, Malcolm.
I'm guessing the Nazis made it in.
Well, there's Nazis, but not like the ones in the movie. We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
Malcolm, Lothar, and Bigelow are all in the comic. I was surprised Lothar was in the comic.
Yeah.
Although in the comics, Lothar is a poor, lost circus performer.
He's a little different.
Who used to work for Cliff, but his face basically looks the same as in the movie. the scene where Cliff saves Malcolm is exactly the same as in the comic, and by that I mean like they literally adapted the panels almost exactly.
Huh.
Here's a huge difference. His girlfriend in the comic is a nude model named Betty.
Yeah, that's pretty different. I guess they didn't want that in a family-friendly film.
Yeah, the movie wouldn't have been PG if she was in it. And she was based on a real model named Betty Page, apparently. He does fight gangsters and Nazis.
Okay.
There's no Neville Sinclair, though. Howard Hughes does not appear, but there's some characters that get mistaken for him, though. Like, there's, like, a part where he, like, meets some, like, security guards or something. He thinks that they're, like, some of Howard Hughes' men.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. In the comic, pulp hero Doc Savage is the inventor of the rocket pack.
That is a name. Doc Savage.
Yeah.
Make a good Batman villain.
They made a movie with him, Doc Savage, Man of Bronze. Maybe we should do that on the podcast. He's kind of an obscure character, but like a lot of like... You could tell a lot of characters were based on him if you read a bit. The guy that created the comics, I think that was Dave Stevens. Yes, Dave Stevens. He said he was satisfied with 70% of the film.
Okay.
So I think it's fair. He thought Billy Campbell was perfectly cast as Cliff. And you know, yeah, looking at the drawings, he does look exactly like the character from the comics. So.
Yeah, that I just looked up a picture of it. That's pretty impressive.
So, getting back to the movie, it was directed by Joe Johnston. And some of these credits might make sense, actually. He did Jumanji.
Okay.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Okay.
October Sky. Captain America, the First Avenger.
Oh, you know, that makes sense.
Because this is basically, you know, I mean...
it's 1930s superhero origin story, pretty much. It's
Iron Man in the 30s, so it's basically, yeah, Iron Man punching Nazis, which is, you know, Captain America. Jurassic Park 3.
Oh.
And Hidalgo.
Oh.
There's quite a few of these that actually, you know what, maybe we should do a podcast on, like... Hidalgo. Maybe we should just do a Hidalgo podcast at some point.
Actually, it looks like we've had him on the podcast before.
I was gonna mention it. Well, not for his directing credits, but yes, he was He was a concept artist and effects technician on the original Star Wars trilogy, and this will probably make a lot of sense to you. He designed Boba Fett's costume.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Among other things. So between that and, like, also directing the first Captain America movie, it's like, no wonder he made The Rocketeer. I mean...
Yeah. He was also apparently in the Ewok Adventure and Ewok's Battle for Endor.
Jeez. Are we gonna have to do those at some point? Like...
We probably will.
I mean, I'd be more likely to sit through those again than, like, the Star Wars Holiday Special or Rise of Skywalker, so there's that. Okay, the cast, and there's quite a lot to get through here.
Yeah.
Billy Campbell, he's the lead in this, the Rocketeer. He played Quincy Morris in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh.
A character that I'd like to point out is usually left out of most Dracula adaptations.
Huh. One of the honored few.
There's one where they combined Arthur Holmwood and Quincy Morris into Quincy Holmwood. Anyway. He's also in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh. Oh, you forgot. He was also Major General George Pickett in Gods and Generals.
Oh,
geez. And Lieutenant Andrew Lewis Pitzer in Gettysburg.
So he's in 2 Civil War movies.
By the same guy.
Those were by the same guy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they
are. Jennifer Connelly, which she's in Labyrinth.
Okay.
Requiem for a Dream. A Beautiful Mind, which I think she won. She either won an Oscar for that one or was nominated for one. Let me look and make. Yeah, she won. Okay. And Top Gun Maverick. She's got quite the filmography. Oh, one of my favorites, Timothy Dalton.
Yeah!
It's taken quite a while to get Timothy Dalton on the podcast, but
I'm shocked the first time we got him was not in his James Bond movie.
I know, yeah, although I have wanted to do those. Because, he played James Bond in The Living Daylights, License to Kill, so he's, the 3rd Bond actor we've had on the podcast?
Yep.
Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan, and now Timothy Dalton. And maybe we'll end up getting George Lazenby on the podcast at some point. Or Roger Moore. He's also in Hot Fuzz, one of my favorite movies there. And I feel like his performance in this was kind of just his audition tape for Hot Fuzz. It's Flash Gordon. He's in Flash Gordon.
Okay. That makes sense.
I just watched Lion in Winter again a few weeks ago. And that's a great movie. And for any literary geeks out there, he's the only actor to play both Heathcliff and Edward Rochester, so there's that. I wonder how many people are going to be like, oh, hey, you mentioned that, and the other half's going to be like, who gives a shit? Paul Sorvino. He was also in Goodfellas.
That makes sense.
Dick Tracy.
That also makes sense.
The guy just gets typecast as a gangster, I guess. It's was he also in Miller's Crossing or something? I don't remember.
He's also in Romeo plus Juliet as Juliet's father.
Oh, Jesus.
That would be a movie to do for the podcast.
I refuse to do that for the podcast. Another favorite of mine, Alan Arkin. Haven't had him on the podcast yet.
Oh, that's true.
Got quite a filmography too. He's in The Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good movie. Catch-22. He played Yossarian. He's in Argo.
Huh.
I think he's the one that says, he comes up with the phrase, Argo, fuck yourself, if I remember right. And a more obscure one, he was actually the first actor to replace Peter Sellers in the role of Inspector Clouseau.
Oh.
He played Inspector Clouseau in one movie, it did horribly, and then everybody basically forgot about it, except me, apparently. John Polito. which, speaking of Miller's Crossing, he's in a few Coen Brothers movies, because he was in Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink, and The Big Lebowski, and we've had him on the podcast before.
Really? And what?
He plays a cop in Highlander.
Oh! Is he the one that calls, Connor a slur?
No, that was a different guy. Although that would be ironic, since John Polito was gay in real life, so... I wonder how he felt about that line. He's also in a movie I really like called The Freshman. Which is that's that movie with Matthew Broderick and Marlon Brando.
That's an interesting cast.
He plays a crime boss that Matthew Broderick's like a college freshman at like a film school. And for some reason Marlon Brando like hires him to like help transport this like Komodo dragon or something. Anyway. And Marlon Brando's just doing an impression of his Vito Corleone performance from The Godfather.
Of course.
So it's
of course.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a pretty funny movie, actually. I wish more people would watch it. Terry O'Quinn is in this. Were you expecting that?
Yes. I was not. It took me a second to recognize him, because I'm not used to seeing him with any sort of hair.
And were you expecting him to play...
For those of you that don't know, his most... Yeah.
Were you expecting him to play Howard Hughes in this?
No, I was not expecting him to show up as Howard Hughes. So, his most well-known role is Lost. He's John Locke.
Yeah. And he's also in The Stepfather. That's probably what I know him from. The Stepfather's a pretty good horror movie. He plays a villain in that one, so that one's kind of fun, seeing him as a villain. And yeah, he's in this too, apparently. Oh, another returning actor, William Sanderson. And I just rewatched Blade Runner not too long ago, and he played J.F. Sebastian. A movie with a lot of strange characters, and he might be the strangest one. Oh, did you know Jan from The Office is in this?
No, I didn't.
She plays the singer at the nightclub.
Huh.
I didn't know she was in this until I was like looking that up. I thought that was funny. Ron Howard's brother Clint Howard is in this. I don't even think I saw him, actually, now that I think about it, but we had him in Solo, A Star Wars Story, which is a movie directed by his brother, Ron Howard. And most importantly, we have Tiny Ron Taylor.
Yeah!
I remember when I first saw this movie, I waited for the end credits of that movie because I was wondering who it was that played Lothar, and I could not believe the name. Tiny Ron Taylor. And he's also in the Naked Gun movies, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Some Star Trek stuff.
He usually gets cast as a heavy and stuff.
That makes sense. He was in Roadhouse.
Roadhouse, yeah. I don't remember who he plays in Roadhouse, but that doesn't surprise me. Oh, the music, and this should be a familiar name. James Horner.
It sounds familiar.
We've had him on the podcast a few times. Aliens, Willow.
Oh.
Deep Impact. Although he's got a lot.
Okay.
He's got so many composer credits. Like everything from like Braveheart and Titanic to
Titanic. Yeah, Avatar.
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Battle Beyond the Stars. Like just okay.
One last thing I would like to mention real quick. There's a very minor character in this named Spanish. His nickname is Spanish Johnny. So we have Johnny Madrid and Spanish Johnny now on the podcast.
Johnny Madrid. I didn't notice that. Initial thoughts. So I think I'll start with this one. I just recently bought this one on DVD, actually.
Huh.
I had been looking for a physical copy of it for years, and I finally found one a month ago. So thankfully, I didn't have to watch it on Disney Plus. And this is a movie I've seen a few times. I believe this was my 4th time.
Okay.
Although, actually, before I even saw the movie, I read the novelization of it. This has happened before, actually, with me. That happened with Indiana Jones, actually.
Huh.
But my 5th grade teacher, she had the Rocketeer novelization on her bookshelf. I borrowed it because the poster looked cool. And it was one of those ones that had, pictures from the movie in it, so that was nice. I read it. I really liked it, so, I wanted to see the movie. And from what I remember, the novelization was basically exactly like the movie. There weren't really too many differences from what I recall. The first time I saw the movie, we borrowed it from Netflix back when they would send you movies in the
back
mail.
during the DVD. Oh.
Back, they would send you this pouch in the mail with the DVD in it. I don't know who else remembers that, but we used.
It's been so long since I've thought about them doing that.
That's how I saw a lot of movies, actually, when I was a kid. It was either that or we went to Movie Gallery, which is also not a thing anymore. And then so I watched it that way. The last time I watched it before this most recent watch was a week before COVID happened. And watching it again, I had pretty much an idea of what it was, because I'd seen it a few times before. And I've always liked it, it's fun. It kind of feels like Iron Man meets Captain America. This feels like what Iron Man in the 30s would be like. I mean, even the fact Howard Hughes is in it kind of, makes that obvious.
It does sort of give it that vibe.
Or it's Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Top Gun, as the back of the DVD says.
I guess that's not inaccurate either.
It's just a fun throwback to 30s and 40s film serials or pulp comics, and it's got a great cast that helps make it really enjoyable. Watching it again, it does lack a bit in substance, but if you're not looking for anything complicated, I think it's a good time. It doesn't take itself too seriously either, it's just fun without any pretensions. I also like planes, so that might explain a few things.
Yeah, that's fair.
You got a great villain played by Timothy Dalton. I mean, Timothy Dalton's always fun. Howard Hughes has a cameo. You got Alan Arkin as comic relief. I'd be lying, though, if I said my rose-tinted memories of this movie made it look better than it was. It's not perfect, but I think it's entertaining. I think I said at one point it was one of my favorite live-action Disney movies. I'm not sure about that now, but I do think it deserves some appreciation. It's kind of not many people have heard of it. I don't hear much about it nowadays, but I think, if people are into this kind of stuff, they'll like it. So, anyway, I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah. So, this was my first time ever watching this movie, and like you mentioned, I hadn't even really heard about it until you brought it up during previous podcast. So this was another one of those movies that I went in with just no expectations. I saw the poster, thought that looked pretty cool. I just sort of loved that sort of like 30s, almost like an Art Deco art style that he has with like the helmet on the poster. So I had no idea what this was gonna be. And then I read the Disney Plus description of it, which all it mentions is that the Rocketeer is taking on the Nazis, and I was like, great, I am ready for this. And so my going into
That's
it,
not
I
a
guess
very
was a
good
little
description, actually. That doesn't really
no,
tell
it's
you.
pretty bad. The Nazis don't really show up that much in this movie, but I will say I was very pleasantly surprised by the whole movie. I think, like you mentioned, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it is just a very charming, sort of action-y adventure movie.
It's good, lighthearted fun, and sometimes that's all you need.
I kind of wrote
I'm
down my
glad
notes
you
at one
liked
point
it.
that it feels a bit more of like a kid-friendly Indiana Jones type, just with its adventure feel, the fact that it's in, it takes place in the 1930s.
Nazis are the bad guys.
The music, exactly, and the music helps a lot with that vibe too. The music is very well done, and it does almost sort of have like an Indiana Jones-ish vibe to it. It's pretty well filmed. The acting is really good. I agree with you that Timothy Dalton just makes a fantastic villain in this.
I mean, we already know because he was in Hot Fuzz, and he's a great villain in that too. So, but actually, I think this was the first movie I saw him in. Was this
really?
Because I saw this at a pretty young age. I was like 10 when I first saw this, which is a good age to see it. Actually, now that I think about it,
no, it's honestly just like a great film for like a younger audience. But yeah, I think comparing it to Indiana Jones and Captain America, you're gonna get that obviously just because of the time period that it takes place in. But it also is just like it has a similar vibe to those movies, but it's a lot more like fun and lighthearted with it, which is nice.
And it also, if it isn't obvious, this isn't quite as good as Indiana Jones. So
yeah.
The first three at least. It's not as good as the first three.
Yeah. But I think that's about it for, I guess, my just opening thoughts.
And like you said, the poster is very memorable too.
Yeah.
I actually had a Boy Scout leader that had like a cardboard cutout of the Rocketeer in his house, which I thought was really cool. He had a lot of cool stuff in there. Actually, he had like film props and stuff there. Yeah. I was gonna laugh though if you like watched the wrong movie. Like, say you found a movie called The Racketeer
and watch that instead. If I would have done that, we could have had the episode be you talk about the Rocketeer and I talk about the Racketeer, and we just never address that.
Yeah.
Just two one-way conversations going on at the same time.
Jesus. I'm waiting for that to happen where like one of us watches the wrong movie. Oh boy. Leonard Maltin. What do you want to guess?
Okay. I'm gonna guess that he liked it. I'm gonna guess he gave it a 3. 3 out of 4.
Not quite. He gave it
really
2.5 out of 4.
Huh.
He said, film captures the look of the 30s, as well as the gee-whiz innocence of Saturday matinee serials. But it's talky and takes too much time to get where it's going. Dalton has fun as a villain patterned after Errol Flynn. Film buffs will get a kick out of the Rondo Hatton-esque bad guy, courtesy of makeup whiz Rick Baker. Which that's Lothar he's talking about.
Yeah.
The DVD I have advertises the hell out of the fact Siskel and Ebert gave this 2 thumbs up, so they liked it.
Of course.
Leonard Maltin was like, it was okay. Whereas Siskel and Ebert, they were like, wow, this is a lot of fun. Yeah. The story, which I gotta say, it was nice watching something with a very simple and straightforward plot again.
It's so strange watching something be like, I comprehend the plot of this one.
But also, it's not confusing and bizarre, but it's also not, simplistic as fuck, like the Friday the 13th.
Because just looking at, because the last thing that we did was the Friday the 13th movies, which is just the same plot over and over again, and before that it was Star Crash, which was just complete nonsense.
Complete nonsense, yeah. Which I do like complete nonsense every now and again, but I need something as a palate cleanser here and there.
Yeah.
Because there was so little plot, we didn't even have to summarize it in the previous one. Friday the 13th. And today's Friday the 13th, actually.
Yeah, we're recording this episode on the 13th.
Yeah. Okay, so the plot of this movie is that in 1938, a pilot named Cliff Secord finds a rocket pack that was created by Howard Hughes.
Naturally.
That's already, Howard Hughes? Wow. With the rocket pack, he becomes Iron Man, kind of. But a bunch of people are after the rocket pack, including the FBI, a Hollywood actor, Nazis, and gangsters. I mean, it's a premise, you know?
Yeah.
I mentioned it. Yeah, I mentioned it took place in the 30s. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so the pros. We can actually talk about pros and cons with this one.
I know, it's weird.
It's an actual movie. It feels like we haven't done an actual movie in a while, you know?
That's sad that our first pro is it felt like an actual movie.
I mean, I didn't have that written down, but yeah,
man.
Basically.
So I'm just looking again at the list of what we did. It was Friday the 13th. Before that, Hardware Wars and Star Crash. Before that, Max Payne. Before that, the new Halloween trilogy.
Oh, the first Halloween movie. The first of that new trilogy feels like an actual movie. But then you also had Mars Attacks.
Man, that is a while. Yeah.
We haven't had something, normal in a while. I feel like the last normal movie we did was The Abyss.
Yeah.
Because everything after that is kind of unhinged. Or bad.
Are you trying to say that Total Recall is unhinged?
It's made by Paul Verhoeven, of course it is. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I like Paul Verhoeven's unhingedness sometimes, you know. But my first pro that I had though was James Horner's score.
Yes.
I mean, just right from the opening titles, there's just something nostalgic about the piano playing, and then when the orchestra comes in, you know, it just works perfectly for the movie.
And then being a 1930s, or a film set in the 1930s, there's also quite a few jazz pieces throughout, which not only help with the setting, but they're also just really good jazz songs.
And some of them are sung by Jan from The Office. It's our second time having a Cole Porter song on the soundtrack. Because Temple of Doom had Anything Goes.
Oh yeah.
This has Begin the Begin. And then you also hear also heard an instrumental version of Night and Day when they're in the nightclub. So there's that as well. And yeah, they did a good job making it look and feel like the 30s, you know, with the music.
Yeah.
And then also the look of it, the costumes. You know, whoever did the costume and set design in this did a really good job.
Actually, can we talk about like the big costume in this, the Rocketeer outfit? Because I think it looks pretty good.
It does, yeah. The helmet.
I will say the only thing is sometimes at certain angles, the eyes make it almost look like Inframan.
I was gonna say, yeah, he does look kind of like Inframan a little bit. He doesn't like. Oh god, what does Inframan do to get powers again? Doesn't he like inject himself with like
He gets like
nuclear
a
power
super.
or something?
I haven't kept Inframan knowledge in my brain since we did the episode.
It was something insane. I know that.
He got like an X-ray at the beginning, or like irradiated.
I don't even know, but yeah, I do like the costume and the Rocketeer costume and the helmet and the rocket pack. You know, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, it kind of looks like Iron Man in the 30s. You know.
Yeah. And then all the other costumes are pretty good too. Like all the dudes from the Mafia look like they're from the Mafia. All the guys from the FBI look like they're from the FBI. The Nazis look like Nazis.
Yeah, I like how the gangsters in this are just the most stereotypical like 30s gangsters. Yeah.
They're so funny, especially when they find out that the actor Sinclair is secretly a Nazi, they immediately turn against them because they're American criminals.
I love that. Yeah, I'm trying. Let me
It's
look.
so funny.
I have the actual line written down somewhere. It's basically like the Joker meeting Red Skull. You know,
Yeah, I was about to bring that up too.
he's an American criminal. You know, Eddie Valentine basically is the Joker here. He's like when he meets Red Skull.
Yeah.
The line. Okay. I may not make an honest buck, but I'm 100% American. I don't work for no two-bit Nazi. Oh, that part's great. Should we just talk about the Neville Sinclair?
Yes.
Which,
yes.
okay, that's another thing. I love the names in this, too. The character names are great.
They feel like such 1930s names. Neville Sinclair, Clifford Seckard,
Secord.
Eddie Valentine.
Eddie Valentine, yeah, and I love how Timothy Dalton says Happy Valentine's Day to him. But yeah, Timothy Dalton, he is just amazing in this as the villain, Neville Sinclair, because he's a Hollywood actor. He was based on Errol Flynn. And you can really see the Errol Flynn influence with him, because he's like filming a swashbuckler movie, and the sets and costumes, I don't know if they're the exact same sets, but they look exactly like the sets from The Adventures of Robin Hood, the Errol Flynn movie.
They're pretty good. I will say I do love that whole scene where it goes to them shooting the movie, because it really does feel like they just dropped you into a different movie for like a minute or two.
Yeah. I mean, how can I hate a movie that has both Timothy Dalton and sword fighting in it? I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Because even when he's like at his mansion, he's like using the sword. Like when he meets with Eddie Valentine, he like uses the sword to remove a flower off of his lapel, or he like cuts the flowers up when they leave.
And they try and make him such like this stereotypical evil Hollywood character. It's like at one point he's trying to seduce Jennifer Connelly, and the whole time he's doing it by basically just quoting verbatim other movies that he starred in, and she's able to recognize each and every one.
Yeah, and she mentions, yeah, he's like trying to seduce her by reciting lines. And they mentioned like he was apparently in movies of Greta Garbo and Carol Lombard.
Yeah.
And she like knocks him out with a plant and says she finally got to play a scene with Neville Sinclair because she's an aspiring actress. You know, I thought that was funny. And they mentioned he's a pretty big star too. He's like,
yeah.
He says at one point, "Who do you think they'll believe, a cheap crook or the number 3 box office star in America?" I'm like, wow, like.
Who do you think would have been number 1 and 2?
Oh, I'm gonna guess 1938. Clark Gable's probably up there in 1938. Betty Davis, maybe. But it made me wonder, though, is he a bigger box office star than Errol Flynn?
What about... Oh, Shirley Temple would have been 1938.
Yeah, Shirley Temple probably would have been. But yeah, he's... But the whole thing with him is he's a Hollywood actor that's a secret Nazi spy.
Which isn't... Usually, they're the communists, not the fascists. So that's kind of fun.
But it's because they based it on this... this biography of Errol Flynn, which was debunked, where it like claimed that Errol Flynn was working with the Nazis.
Huh.
But it was like based on that, even though it wasn't, it wasn't true at all. But it is kind of fun because you could see him, making a swashbuckler movie that he's also just terrible, terrible villain. He's so, and also I noticed towards the end he starts kind of trying to do a German accent.
He's kind of like slipping in and out of it, and he becomes just sort of like a mustache twirling villain at the end of it.
I know, it's great. And I guess like the ending, it's
he also has a pretty good line at the end when
he's fighting, I think I know which one you're talking about, where he's fighting Cliff, and Cliff says, "Where's your stuntman now, Sinclair?"
That one was pretty good.
No, Sinclair says, "I do my own stunts."
I was gonna mention the one when he's talking to Jennifer Connelly's character. She's like, "Oh my God, Neville Sinclair's a what? A spy? A saboteur? Fascist? All of the above."
Yeah, that was a little bit earlier in the movie, but yeah, that's when she discovers he just has this secret Nazi control room in his mansion or something that she finds behind a bookcase. Like, she tries calling someone on the radio and realizes it's in German. And there's like a code book or something with like a swastika on it. Yeah. It's so over the top, but you kind of just roll with it, though. Spy, saboteur, fascist, all of the above. Yeah, it's a great line. Oh, boy.
Ooh, should we talk about Lothar?
Yeah, we'll talk about Lothar. Where do I have that written down? The makeup on him is great, for one.
It's so good. He just looks like some sort of giant movie monster almost. But like a movie monster of the era.
He's supposed to look like this actor named Rondo Hatton, who was in The Brute Man. There was this movie that was on Mystery Science Theater.
Okay.
And he's in one of the Sherlock Holmes films with Basil Rathbone called The Pearl of Death. I'm sure he was in other stuff, but those were like the first two titles I recognized that I'd seen him in. And when I first saw the movie, I just
looked him up.
When I first saw the movie, that's what I thought his face actually looked like.
Oh.
So I was like 10 when I first saw this, so I didn't really understand makeup effects.
I just looked at a picture of Rondo Hatton, and yeah, I can see it.
And like Tiny Ron Taylor is a pretty tall dude, if I remember right.
Yeah,
he's I think he's like 7 feet tall. If you ever saw the Naked Gun movies, he's this like minor character that his like head is always out of frame.
Oh yeah, okay.
I don't know if you remember that, but like if anybody's seen the Naked Gun movies, that's what he, and he plays like a henchman in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. If you remember the scene where Ace Ventura catches a bullet with his teeth.
Oh yeah,
I think he's the guy that shoots at him in the car.
Okay.
It's a little hard to recognize him in that movie, though, because he's got a mustache and obviously doesn't have the Frankenstein makeup or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lothar's pretty threatening too. Like when he taunts that guy in the hospital bed, it's like, wow, like he means business, you know?
Yeah, it's so he's such a just imposing, threatening character because of his height and because of the makeup.
I was going to like try imitating him at the beginning of the podcast, but my voice kind of gave out. Like I've had strep throat for a few days.
He also gets into this fantastic shootout with the FBI.
Oh yeah, he pulls out 2 guns. He's like, shoot at him. I also like that fight he has with Cliff on the Zeppelin at the end, where he's got like a
It's a really fun
He's
one.
got like a bungee cord or something.
I love how he gets taken out too, because he knocks Cliff off the side of the Zeppelin. So then he just activates the rocket pack, spins around, tackles him, and then while attached to the bungee cord, he falls like to the bottom of the Zeppelin, breaks the window, and knocks the pilot out.
Mm-hmm. And his death too, like when the Zeppelin blows up. But like before that, like when he like pulls out like a knife and does this great evil laugh. And then he dies because he's attached to the harness and like the Zeppelin's like blowing up. It's a good voice too, like this really deep.
Oh yeah, very intimidating.
I was gonna try imitating it, but like my voice, you know, just like, where's the rocket? You know, kind of like that. When he says Palm Terrace, when he finds Cliff's house.
Palm Terrace.
Yeah, that's a great, God damn it, I wish my voice didn't suck today. Palm Terrace. Yeah, he's a very memorable heavy in the movie. Yeah. And we should talk about some of the other characters though.
We already mentioned
Cliff. We should probably mention Cliff.
Yeah, we probably should talk about the main character of the movie.
The main character, Billy Campbell was cast as Cliff Secord, the Rocketeer, and I think he was a good choice for the lead. You know, he's
definitely got the look for the part.
Yeah, he's pretty young, handsome. You know, I'm a little surprised though that he didn't become more of a leading man after this.
He really feels like he would have been good in a lot of these sort of movies. I don't know how many people were making like 1930s stuff specifically, but he could have been a good like sort of younger action star, I think.
Although I was thinking though, like what this movie would have been like if they had gotten Bruce Campbell instead.
Would have been a very different movie.
I feel like it would have been way goofier.
Oh yeah,
if they'd done that, but because I think Billy Campbell is able to like. Yeah, there's a sincerity to him, I think, that sells the role in this. Like, he doesn't, like, feel like he's mugging or anything in this. He's just... You just buy him in that role, you know?
Yeah.
And when he gets up in the rocket pack, you know, he's just blasting off, you know, you buy that it's him doing all this. And not just a stuntman. Or a special effect. And I like his banter with Alan Arkin as Peavy.
It's so funny. It feels like these characters just have a good chemistry together, which it feels like we've been missing for so many episodes in a row.
It felt like these two they should be hosting like something like Mythbusters together. That's kind of what their chemistry felt like in this, where it's just these two dudes just working on like fixing planes and stuff, you know. And there's a lot of funny lines between those two, like
Yeah.
You sneeze in this plane, you could end up upside down in a bean field. Or the stuff when they're like, the stuff when they're testing out the rocket's pretty fun.
Oh yeah.
Towards the beginning, like
their
trial run is then they attach it to a dummy. It just
takes off.
It's on like a harness, but then it just like takes off, and when it lands, like the head gets dented, so that's when they decide to make a helmet. Which, yeah, probably a very good idea.
And I like the line when they do make the helmet, because Cliff puts it on and asks, "How do I look?"
Like a hood ornament.
Like a hood ornament.
That was one of my favorites, yeah. Or, I should have tested it myself. Yeah, you'd be halfway to Kansas by now, you chowderhead. And it feels like, yeah, that probably is like stuff people would say in the 30s too. Like, I think it fits that time period. It doesn't feel too like anachronistic or anything. That also, I mean, it's Alan Arkin. I mean, that dude's just, whenever he shows up in a movie, I'm like, okay, good. Now I know things are going to be a bit fun then.
We also have
Jennifer Connelly.
Yep. Cliff's love interest.
His girlfriend in this, Jenny.
And again, this is a weird thing to say. They actually have some realistic feeling chemistry.
They do actually have pretty good chemistry in this, not gonna lie.
Which is such a rarity for this podcast for whatever reason. We can never find just like a good romance plot.
Let's see. When was the last time that happened? I don't know. I mean, the chemistry between Sarah Jessica Parker as a dog and Pierce Brosnan's severed head in Mars Attacks was pretty good.
Are you telling me none of the romance in Friday the 13th stuck with you?
Do you even call that romance? It was more like they were just fucking. Yeah, usually we don't have good romance on here. And yeah, these two, yeah, they worked together, I thought. And her character is interesting, too, because she's playing an actress. An actress playing an actress. And she's an extra in a movie starring Neville Sinclair. And she's, like, disappointed because the actress that got her part
was just absolutely terrible.
She's really bad, like, her line delivery is really bad, and she only got the role because she's the producer's niece, so it's like, oh, come on, you know. And apparently her audition tape was really good, too, you know. But then, like, the whole thing going on here is that, like, you know, she's in a relationship with Cliff, but then also she's like Neville Sinclair is trying to steal her away, you know, because he wants information on the rocket back. The scenes with them at that jazz club are just oh man, those are some funny scenes. Like
when Cliff shows up disguised as like a waiter.
Yeah, and he's like, because Sinclair and Jenny are like having dinner there, and Cliff is like trying to put a message in her soup, and he's such a clumsy waiter too. It's like so obvious he doesn't know what he's doing. And then when he like finally gets her away from the table, he tries telling her he's the Rocketeer. She doesn't even know what that is.
Yeah. Jenny, prepare yourself for a shock. I'm the Rocketeer. The Rocket who? Haven't you read the papers? No, I've been working all day.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. And then also W.C. Fields appears at that nightclub. I don't know if you were expecting that, but there's a W.C. Fields cameo in this, you know, famous famous comedian from the 30s.
Real quick, can you give me a second? I'm hearing screaming coming from the hallway.
Oh, God.
Cerveza cristal. Cerveza cristal.
Alright, sorry about that. I don't know what was happening. I guess whoever was screaming left.
That's strange.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening. Anyway.
W.C. Fields has a cameo in this.
Hmm.
Or, well, it's a guy playing W.C. Fields, because the actual W.C. Fields was dead by that point. You know, which he was like a 30s comedian, known for being a huge drunk.
I'm pretty sure he was drunk in the movie, too.
Yeah, he was. And he's, like, staring at Jenny's, huge tracts of land. There's a scene you wouldn't expect in a Disney movie.
No.
It was just kind of a weird, like, brief cameo that was
Kind of an out of nowhere joke, honestly.
Sort of amusing. But, you know, they throw in a few references like that, you know, to, like, you know, oh, you know, the 30s, you know, because, like,
yeah.
W.C. Fields is in it. Obviously, Neville Sinclair, he was based on Errol Flynn. I think they show a poster for, like, a Bette Davis movie at one point, like Jezebel or something. And also, there are Nazis in this.
Yes. And they are just dressed like stereotypical Nazis. They have, like, the caps, the exact suits.
And then, but before the Nazis even show up, like, when Jenny and, like, Cliff go to, like, the movie theater, there's, like, a newsreel with Hitler.
Oh, yeah.
He's making all these, like, sarcastic remarks, like, peace. What he means is a piece of the world.
That made me think of that, the producers.
Yeah. I feel like that's a lot. Like, whenever I see a lot of Nazi parodies, I just think of the producers, honestly. Or when the newsreel, like, mentions that Hitler's, like, on his Goodwill tour, and then Cliff says their last Goodwill tour buried half of Europe. And it kind of made me think of Indiana Jones again, you know, because Indiana Jones hated Nazis as well, so it's...
And the scene towards the end of the movie when you see the Zeppelin rise up with the massive swastika on the back, the first thing I thought of was The Last Crusade.
Yes, yeah, because there's that scene in the Zeppelin, yeah. There isn't really an action scene in it, though, in that movie, but... Should we just talk about that part, or...
Yeah.
There's, like, the big climax of the movie is this action scene up on a Zeppelin. And it's probably the best action scene in the whole movie. It's just this, you know... Obviously, they saved the best for last, you know?
Yeah.
There's that fight with Lothar, and I guess we sort of get an idea of what Timothy Dalton in A View to a Kill would have been like. Well, if he was the Bond villain in that one anyway, because...
Yeah.
You know, because Max Zorn, he had, like, a blimp, and he was a Nazi experiment, too, so, you know...
It's also, the fight is a pretty good use of the jetpack, too, which was nice.
It is, yeah.
Because, like I mentioned before, he tackles Lothar with the rocket pack is on. But then that's also what they use to kill Timothy Dalton at the end of the film.
Yeah, the way oh my god, his death is fantastic. Like, because earlier in the movie, the rocket pack was leaking. There's, like, a hole in it, so PV put, like, some gum over it. You know, because the pilots, they have this, like, lucky gum. And the gum, like, covers up the part where the fuel is leaking. But then, like, towards the end, like, Cliff notices that the gum kind of came off, so the fuel's leaking again. So when Neville Sinclair puts on the rocket pack and tries escaping, it like goes wrong. And he crashes into the Hollywoodland sign.
Destroying specifically the land part of it. So it's just Hollywood left over.
And I like how right before he, like, took off, he said that he would miss Hollywood, and he literally missed it.
I didn't even notice that. That's pretty good.
He literally missed it. Yeah. Pretty good death scene for him, yeah. The newsreel. Oh, the Bulldog Cafe.
Yeah.
I like the set design on that thing.
The set design throughout's pretty strong, but that cafe just felt...
Yeah, and it looks exactly
really
like it does in the comic, too, which is pretty impressive.
Oh, wow. Really?
Like, exactly alike. And one of the guys there is J.F. Sebastian from Blade Runner, so that's nice.
They have a great scene in that cafe where the gangsters are trying to look for Cliff, and they're trying to, like, intimidate everyone there, but no one budges.
I like that the people working at the cafe protect Cliff and Peavy from the gangsters. Yeah. You know, that's really nice of them, actually.
Because it really makes it feel like it's a very tight community. Because, like, so at the beginning of the movie, they keep giving Cliff shit for everything that he does, like, you know, almost crash landing the plane. But then when push comes to shove, they defend him when these gangsters come looking for him. And they get pretty serious with some of the threats. They nearly press this guy's face into, like, a hot grill in the kitchen.
Yeah, and then the gangsters, they only leave when they find Jenny's phone number on the wall.
Yeah.
And then the ones that they, like, left behind to, like, guard them, one of them was, like, just looking at all the pictures on the wall, and he realizes that Cliff is, you know, dating her.
Yeah.
There's also, like, several instances in this movie where soup gets on someone while they're trying to eat it.
Oh, yeah.
It happens in the
club scene, in the cafe.
The special effects in this are pretty good, too. Like, with all the plane crashes and rocket takeoffs. You know, it doesn't look bad for the time. And we mentioned the costume as well.
The gunfights are pretty fun, too. Like, there's one sort of big gunfight with the FBI and gangsters against the Nazis at the end of the film that's pretty good. Because it feels like everyone's just sort of unloading everything they have on them.
Just a lot of shooting going on. Or, like, at Cliff's house when, you know, Lothar's there. And it does feel like they're actually trying to kill each other, too. So it's like...
Yeah.
And another thing about the gangsters, I like when Eddie's men are, like, when they see the rocket take off, one guy's, like, eating popcorn like it's a movie. And then Eddie knocks the bag of popcorn out of his hand. I always thought that was funny.
Yeah.
That kind of feels like something that would be in Indiana Jones, actually.
It does, like one of the Nazis just marveling at Indiana Jones destroying everything.
Yeah, and then, like, Belloc, like, knocks the popcorn out of his hand or something. Like, kind of like that part in Raiders of the Lost Ark when the locals offer the Nazis, like, some watermelons or something.
Oh,
and they just throw them on the ground. It's kind of like that. Or it sort of reminds me of that. The name Rocketeer, he gets it because, like, they're, like, trying to figure out what to call the Rocket Man. Because he saved Malcolm up in the plane.
Yeah. And then they start with Rocket Boy, go to Rocket Man, and then they land on Rocketeer.
Because Bigelow sees a billboard that says Pioneer. So he's like, how about Rocketeer? And it does have a ring to it, to be fair.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound bad. I also wrote, Lothar looks really out of place in the South Seas Club.
Very much so.
He's what, like 7 feet tall, and he's just walking around in there?
just destroying everything in his path.
He looks like a Frankenstein's monster or something.
Yeah. I think Eddie even calls him Frankenstein at one point in the
I think
movie.
so, yeah. I think he does.
Yeah, careful, Frankenstein, you're not bulletproof.
And I like the look of that club, too. Like, there's this, like, giant oyster up on the this like giant fake oyster up on the stage, and some guys get trapped in it. That part kind of felt like this scene in the Obi-Wan club from Temple of Doom.
Yes, at the beginning of Temple of Doom.
It felt a lot like that.
I've been in an Indiana Jones movie after talking about it so many times. I might go watch Raiders and Temple tonight.
Maybe, yeah. I guess there's nothing stopping me, yeah. And I like how Neville Sinclair just, like, he starts using machine gun to try to shoot the Rocketeer during that part. It felt so much like the opening of Temple of Doom. I mean...
it really did.
If Indiana Jones had a rocket pack, it might have been sort of like that.
I might have gone like that.
We need to mention Howard Hughes.
Yeah, we haven't talked about him really yet.
I knew we were... Okay, so Howard Hughes in this, which... I mean, that's great. Like, I wish he was in it more, though. And I wish he was more eccentric, though, because, I mean, if you read about Howard Hughes, that dude is fascinating. Like,
yeah,
go look up some trivia about that dude. He's crazy. Or just watch The Aviator. I just watched that movie again recently. That movie's fantastic. Watch that. But in this movie, he's played by Terry O'Quinn. Technically, this is not the first time Howard Hughes has been on the podcast.
What else was he in?
Christopher Nolan based Bruce Wayne on Howard Hughes in the Dark Knight trilogy.
That's right.
If you remember. And some of the stuff he does in those movies is, like, based on stuff Howard Hughes did, you know? Although he's not a germaphobe like Howard Hughes was. And he was also the inspiration for Tony Stark as well.
Which you can really tell.
Yeah, he really does just kind of feel like Tony Stark in this, or like Howard Stark. You know, Howard Stark was named after Howard Hughes. Yeah. Because basically in this movie, like, they show the aviation side of Howard Hughes, where he's like this genius that, like, builds all these planes. He built the rocket in the Rocketeer. Built the rocket pack. But then it was stolen from him, so he, like, takes Cliff to his, it's just this huge hangar with, like, all these planes and stuff in it, and he's, like, saying, look, you gotta give the rocket back to me, and he shows him this... he shows him this cartoon. Were you expecting to see this in...
No, I wasn't.
I was wondering what your reaction to this part was gonna be.
It caught me way off guard.
It's basically this cartoon that they somehow got it out of Germany. He, like, I don't know. I guess many Bothans died to get it or something. I don't know.
That's pretty much what they said.
That's what they say in the movie. Something like that. Like, a guy died trying to get it out of Germany. And it's this Nazi propaganda cartoon. It just shows the Nazi plan to steal the rocket, and you just see a bunch of Nazis wearing rocket packs and taking over the world. It's so over the top and just so glorious. And, like, the American eagle turns into, like, a Nazi eagle at the end.
Yeah.
It's just, wow. In a Disney movie.
It almost reminded me a bit of the Jurassic Park when that also has, like, the little cartoon in the middle.
You mean Mr. DNA?
Yeah.
One of Mr. DNA, yeah. It's, well, very different tone from that, for one. Okay, apparently Howard Hughes just has this weird cartoon with them that they smuggled out of Germany. And there are a few little, like, Easter eggs with Howard Hughes as well. Like, I like how when Cliff escapes the hangar, he uses a model of the Hercules to get away.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody that doesn't know, that was or the Spruce Goose, as some people called it. It was this wooden plane that Howard Hughes made that caused a lot of controversy because people thought it wouldn't fly. And too much government money was, like, being used to make it during World War II. It was the biggest plane in existence for decades. It was only recently beaten, actually.
Have you ever seen one of those planes before?
The Hercules? I mean, yeah, I've seen.
Yeah. But, like, in person.
Not in person, no.
They're just absolutely gigantic.
Yeah, like, I think in The Aviator, he says, the wingspan's, like, as long as, like, a football field.
Yeah, no, it's insane.
It's pretty damn big. Okay, I just want to watch The Aviator again. But yeah, it was like the biggest plane in existence for decades, and people didn't think it was. There was like a whole Senate hearing that Howard Hughes had to go through because people thought he was crazy for building that thing and using so much money to make it. And then Howard Hughes actually flew it, and it worked. It apparently worked.
Yeah.
And in the scene, like, Cliff, like, gets away using the model of the Hercules, and then Howard Hughes says, the son of a bitch will fly.
Will fly.
Which I thought was funny. It was fun watching it, like, now, knowing a little bit more about Howard Hughes, and, like, Because when I first saw this movie, I was, like, 10. I didn't know who Howard Hughes was.
Yeah, I don't think really any kid's gonna understand that joke.
But, like, aviators in the 30s, they knew who he was. He was, like, really famous. Like, anybody in the aviation field should probably know who Howard Hughes is, Or if you lived in Las Vegas during, like, the 60s, you probably know who Howard Hughes is, because he bought, like, a bunch of shit while he was there, and
yeah,
the TV stations would always be playing, like, Ice Station Zebra all the time, because he liked that movie for some reason. And then also, like, his attempts at, like, producing movies are interesting to read about, because, he, among other things, made The Conqueror, that movie with John Wayne as Genghis Khan.
Oh, no!
He was the producer on that. Hell's Angels, that was, like, one of his first movies. That movie is fucking insane, because they actually, like, flew those planes. There were some stunts in that movie that were too dangerous. Like, the stuntmen were saying, do not do that. And then Howard Hughes was like, I'll do it. He just got up in the plane and did some of the stunts himself. Like,
that's kind of awesome, actually.
He was fucking nuts, but in, like, the best way possible. He's such a fascinating dude to read about. I honestly, I've thought about just going, like, we should just do a podcast on Howard Hughes. Like, we'll talk about a few of his movies, but mostly just an excuse to talk about how fucking crazy he was. Let's see. Yeah, you got American gangsters killing off Nazi soldiers. That's pretty fun. Oh, and Howard Hughes shows up during the end because he, like, saves them from the Zeppelin as it blows up. Was that referencing the Hindenburg?
It had to be, right? It had to be.
When was the Hindenburg?
The 37.
So yeah, that might be a reference to the Hindenburg.
It had to be.
Also known as the first Led Zeppelin album cover. And then he like shows up at the end. Howard Hughes. He was nice enough to get Cliff a new plane, which was cool of him.
Yeah.
And he like asks him. He asks Cliff, "I mean to ask you, what was it like strapping that thing to your back and flying like a bat out of hell?" And Cliff says, "This is the closest I'll ever get to heaven, Mr. Hughes." And he looks over at Jenny and says, "Well, maybe not." And they get the plans for the rocket pack. And Peavy's like talking about all the like new additions they could make to it while Cliff kisses Jenny. He's not paying attention at all. Basically, they're trying to set up a sequel that didn't get made. So, yeah. So hey, it has a happy ending. That's nice.
Yeah.
The Nazis died at the end. That's a happy ending.
It's always a happy ending.
Did you have any cons you wanted to talk about, or?
I guess I do sort of agree with how did I forget his name? Yeah, Leonard Maltin. A little bit. It does drag just a little bit, but for the most part, everything seems paced fine. Like, I don't really know what exactly I would change in this to really speed it up.
I think if it has any problems, I think it's just it feels a bit derivative of other things.
Yeah.
And it could have used maybe a few more eccentricities to it.
Yeah.
Like maybe a few more weird elements to help it stand out a little bit more. Because it was a box office bomb, you know, and like...
Yeah.
Maybe it just kind of came across a little too niche and like... Hey, it's a throwback to the 30s. Indiana Jones already did that, you know. Anyway.
Yeah.
And it is a bit surface level with some stuff. Like, it doesn't really...
Yeah, like, I think you mentioned
like...
there was a review that they kind of said, like, everything had, like, a golly gee sort of tone to it. And I do wish they would have gone a bit more in-depth with everything, because it's a very just, like, black and white movie. What's happening is exactly what you see.
Howard Hughes is, like, you know, just... He's not like the actual Howard Hughes. He's kind of just like a romanticized version of what Howard Hughes is like, you know. It works though because the acting is good, but yeah, you do kind of wish that maybe there's just a little bit more. I mentioned earlier the writer, the guy that wrote the comic, said he was 70% satisfied with the movie. Which I think, yeah, I think that sounds like a good number. 70%, maybe 80% for me, but, you know, like, either way, there could have been maybe a little bit more, and it would have been closer to being, like, perfect, you know. It could have been Indiana Jones, for example. It could have been the next Indiana Jones, or something like that.
Maybe having a bit more that builds up Timothy Dalton as a Nazi.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I kind of wish they revealed he was a Nazi earlier in the movie.
Or at least, like, drop hints to it. Because instead it's just all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a Nazi.
It kind of just... Yeah, I think they could have done a little bit more with it as well. Like, you know, because that was... it was fun seeing, like, just, like... the Nazi like cartoon and stuff, but you kind of wish there was a little bit more of like the Nazis as the bad guys in this, because it seems like most of it it's these like 30s gangsters, and that's kind of fun, but you know, kind of fun having Nazis as the bad guys in the movie too, you know, again, like the Indiana Jones movies. I also noticed while watching this, he doesn't spend Cliff doesn't spend as much time as the Rocketeer as you would think in this.
Yeah, it's only for, like, the scene where he's, like, kind of trying it out. The scene where he saves the guy. The final fight, and then just when he's trying to get somewhere quickly, he'll put it on.
Yeah. He's not wearing the mask for most of it. Like, and I didn't really realize that until this watch. But yeah, I do think maybe they could have added a few more action scenes, because that was something Leonard Maltin said in the review. It was like, it was really talky, and yeah, maybe there could have been maybe not like a ton more action, but like maybe 2 more action scenes.
Yeah,
I think would be reasonable. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think I said Howard Hughes should have been in it more. That's another thing.
Honestly, Howard Hughes being the main character could have been funny.
That could have been really fun, yeah. I was thinking that, actually. Like, if Howard Hughes was the main character, he's, like, trying to get his rocket back, that would have been a lot of fun. Because then you could do so much with that, you know?
Yeah. Plus, it would give, like, a very personal reason for him to go after the Nazis,
But
which
also
could have
just
been
because
really
Howard
funny.
Hughes was fucking crazy, and there's so many, like, things you can do with his personality in that. But anyway, it's fun having what we have with it. I guess that's getting into, unless you did you have anything else, or should we get into
No,
overall
I think
thoughts?
we're good to move on to overall thoughts.
Yeah. It's just nice, light entertainment, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes you need something like this, you know, just to wash away the problems of the real world. Obviously, it's not a masterpiece like Star Crash or Quantum Quest, but it works. It's just some, you know, good escapism, nothing more. There's something just kind of comforting and nice about this movie, which
Yeah.
is strange to say about a film with Nazis in it.
Well, it's because the Nazis lose.
It's a very PG version of what the Nazis were, I guess.
Yeah.
They're like Indiana Jones Nazis, basically.
Yeah.
And the cast looked like they were having fun, you know, especially Timothy Dalton and Alan Arkin. Those two looked like they were having a lot of fun with this one.
Yes. The chemistry between those characters is great. The chemistry, like the main romance plot is actually pretty good. It's solid.
It's not amazing, but it's decent. Which is more than you could say for a lot of movies on this podcast, to be fair.
Willow,
Attack of the Clones, From Dusk Till Dawn 3. I thought they did a really good job making it feel like something you'd see at a 30s Saturday matinee, you know?
Yeah.
Put it in, like, black and white and split it up into episodes. You could show it as, like, a film serial.
That would be a pretty interesting way to watch this.
Yeah. I mean, look, it has Timothy Dalton as the villain and a cameo from Howard Hughes. I'm kind of obligated to like this thing. You know? Is it the best thing I've ever seen? No, but I'm glad it exists. You know, this kind of optimism is nice now and then, so...
Yeah, if you just want a nice, fun, light movie to watch, maybe have in the background while you do something else, this is like a perfect choice.
Yeah. Kind of makes me wish it did better, though. You know, it box office bomb. I think it has its fans, though. It definitely has its fans. Like I've met a few people that like this movie, but I've never really had like a huge in-depth discussion about it, though. Like today, which that was kind of interesting. You know, I never thought I'd say the name Tiny Ron Taylor out loud, but here we are.
We'll just need to find an excuse to say his name more.
I don't know how I'd be able to review Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. Roadhouse. We could review Roadhouse.
Yeah. Maybe we do Roadhouse versus Roadhouse.
Roadhouse versus Roadhouse. I think we did consider doing that. Or we could do Sasquatch Mountain, where he plays Sasquatch. What the fuck is this? Oh god, it was for the Sci-Fi Channel.
Oh no.
Oh, but that is so bad. Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, when you think of like live action Disney movies, though, like not a lot of people will say, "Oh, The Rocketeer," you know. But you know, hey, it'd be nice to see it get more appreciation. You know, if you like this type of stuff, you know, like 30s, like era stuff, or like planes, you know?
Yeah.
Probably like this, so yeah. If you're a huge fan of Billy Campbell or Jennifer Connelly, you've probably seen this, right? Okay, so is there anything else we wanted to add, or
I think we can probably wrap it up.
don't really have an outro? Well, I guess we did kind of decide our next, but next we're doing Gremlins and
4 hour?
Gremlins 2: The New Batch.
Yes, for our Christmas episode.
Yeah.
And until then, Andy Griffith.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.